What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. Before we start, we did, I believe at this point, hit the 130,000 subscriber mark, so that NES Classic giveaway will be ending later on today. It probably happened throughout the night, last night. So what I'll do is I'll leave it throughout the day, and then later on tonight we'll end it. We'll pick a winner and get a hold of you through email. So this is your last chance to enter. Of course, links down below and everything, and we'll figure out something else to give away after that for you guys. Now, today we have some fun stuff to talk about, including Nintendo's latest kinda Switch SDK getting out there in the wild, and it is a big deal, and it sounds like somebody is in some pretty big trouble. And then we did get Sony's financials along with an update for how many systems they sold, PS4 specifically, as the Vitas are kind of done, right? But it's pretty impressive, and it looks like they are eyeing up that 100 million mark. We'll go over all of that and then some other stuff as well. First, start with some quick news. Sea of Thieves, a game that a lot of people have kind of been writing off. I know some people still play it and everything, but it definitely kind of fell out of the news as before, where it was obviously very popular when it first launched and everything. It's kind of fallen off, but Microsoft still tells us about it to a degree. They tell us how many players are playing the game, and they updated over on the Microsoft website and the blog and everything, and talked about how 5 million players have played Sea of Thieves. Now, of course, this is on Game Pass, so most people could technically have been downloading it to try it out and then stop playing it. I would have been more curious to hear about how many active players are playing it currently, but for them to get 5 million people to technically buy or even download it through Game Pass is pretty good, and they are constantly updating it as they are really moving towards service-based games, and of course that's exactly what Sea of Thieves is. It's a game that launched that was going to have content provided going forward, and so far they have at least been updating it. But I said before, that's kind of a game I'll go back to after a year or two and see how much it's changed and see if it's the game that I was kind of hoping it would be when it launched. But congratulations, the rare people are still at least joining in, I guess, every day to check it out. And I do think Game Pass is definitely helping that kind of going forward. Oh, and if you missed it, we did talk about Nintendo's financials and really the amount of systems that they've sold, including software and everything, and kind of where they're heading towards. And I kind of wanted to cap it off here with the stocks, since we kind of talked about the stocks when they were going down. I talked about yesterday in Newswave how, of course, there was a firm kind of betting against Nintendo that their stocks would continue to fall. Well, after all the stuff they released yesterday, it looks like the stocks pretty much took off as soon as they opened in the Japanese stock market, as you're seeing here, a near 6% jump. So it looks like it's technically going in the wrong direction for the firm that was betting against them. Even in, I guess, the U.S. stock exchange and everything, it's also going up there. So that's not going in the right direction for that firm. It's going in the right direction, though, for Nintendo, as their software sales, which of course translates to profit, was much higher than it was last year's first quarter. So it seems like in terms of software, Nintendo's going in the right direction, definitely, because all of their stuff, even from their back catalog, is selling well. It's more the systems, that the hardware is kind of a question mark if they'll be able to hit that 20 million by the end. But I will say it is too early currently to judge it. I mean, when we get to, obviously, into that last fourth quarter and we find out how many systems they've sold through 3 quarters, including a holiday, then we can kind of figure out if they're going to make it or not. So I'll at least give them through the holiday with Pokemon and Smash, and we'll see what happens then. Then we got more Xbox backwards compatibility titles released, or at least announced and then released. Larry Herb, or of course Major Nelson, announced over on Twitter that both Splinter Cell Blacklist and Splinter Cell Double Agent were coming to Xbox backwards compatible for the Xbox One, the Xbox One X. Of course, Blacklist launched back in 2013 for the 360, the PS3, and of course the PC. And then Double Agent launched what feels like forever ago, 12 years ago actually, back in 2006. That was actually a cross-generation game, so it released on the PS2, the Xbox, and the Xbox 360, and the PS3. I believe the GameCube also, but it launched between generations essentially. So while Double Agent's a bit older, Blacklist is a little newer, and I think people should try out, obviously, Blacklist and Conviction, because I do think we're heading towards a new Splinter Cell to get announced, possibly at Gamescom. I do think Ubisoft is prepping everyone for that, and I think Microsoft's working to prep people too. with all this backwards compatible stuff, because I think Microsoft, if they do announce that, might have the marketing on it. All right, guys, some of the smaller stuff out of the way. Let's get into some of the bigger stuff, starting with Nintendo's March SDK was leaked online. And this is technically an issue for Nintendo because it does outline as a software development kit if people who are like hacking the system are trying to find different loopholes or ways in or ways to exploit the system in some way, shape, or form with software, this is how they would be able to research and figure it out very easily, as this, of course, software development kit. The idea of these kits is to obviously help you develop software. So if you are an aspiring developer and you have a game and you want to put it on the Switch, you would essentially apply to do so through their website. There is a long screening process, and then they have you sign a non-disclosure agreement that basically promises that you will not leak this online or share it to people outside of your studio or whatnot, which means you probably then have to have your employees or maybe another person you're working with, as some of these indie games are obviously like 2 or 3 people, have them sign some kind of non-disclosure agreement, because the legal consequences can be pretty serious. Like, you could have some serious stuff put against you, whether it's they sue you or, you know, I don't know, go to jail or something. But they definitely would try to ruin you financially if you leak this. So somebody, a developer somewhere, leaked this thing out. It is online. People have been downloading it. And now you're probably going to see hackers and maybe probably some homebrew people as well look through it and see what tricks or what bits of software development they can use to either make a game or exploit the system. If they were going to leak one, they should have leaked the April one, because at least the April one apparently has, I guess, the ability to use microphones and everything. But there you go. Apparently that's out there. So what's going to happen? Well, honestly, from what I've heard from other people, the SDK kits are somewhat unique to each developer who uses them. Like, there's a digital signature inside of it. So if Nintendo downloads it and looks through it, they can probably figure out which developer leaked this, which means that they'll find them. There's one thing Nintendo's good about, it's deploying the ninjas, and, you know, they go find whoever's either ripping off copyrights or in this case leaking SDKs, stuff that shouldn't be out there, confidential stuff that shouldn't be out there. As of now, though, I will say most of the links were taken down. I know people were mirroring them and probably putting them up on a torrent site and stuff, but it's at least harder to get now than it was then. But yeah, expect Nintendo to be looking for this developer who leaked this out. We probably won't hear about them finding them and suing them and everything, but yeah, somebody's in some pretty big trouble on this one. Next up, let's talk about GameStop, as they're kind of following the way of Best Buy and Amazon as they start to kind of take away heavy discounts on games. We saw what happened with Best Buy, where they basically retired the Unlock the Gamers Club that gave 20% off of new game purchases, or you pre-order them or you walk in and buy it that day. You'd get 20% off. It was an awesome deal. A little too good, I guess, because they got rid of it. Of course, Amazon has been slowly pulling back on their discounts, whether it was you used to have a 2-week grace period after the game came out to get 20% off, took that away, and I'm sure in other regions they've been doing some funny things too with it. But it looks like now GameStop is removing something that really didn't have anything to do with new games, but it gave pretty heavy discounts on their used stuff. That's their Elite Pro membership. I actually have this membership. I've had it for months now, and apparently it's ending today. But if you already have it, you basically have it until your membership expires. Generally, they last for a year, so if you just signed up for it, consider yourself lucky, I guess. You do get the 20% off used games, accessories, I believe trade-in and all that stuff. And of course, you get that magazine that comes in the mail every month that you probably don't really look at that much because, it's a magazine. But yeah, it's interesting to see the market kind of react to Best Buy getting rid of their Gamers Club program, as you're going to see this. I mean, that was the biggest thing, I think, keeping these two in check with Amazon and GameStop, and now that's pretty much gone. They're kind of doing the same thing. It's just the way it was. Who would have known? Best Buy was the one leading the market when it came to video game discounts. But yeah, it's the way it is, I guess, with the market. Maybe somebody else will step up and do it. Who else would do it, though? I mean, we're talking basically the big three when it comes to this stuff. I mean, maybe would Target do something, or Walmart? I don't know. I know Walmart already started matching Amazon's 2-day shipping for free, basically. So hey, maybe, you never know. Next up, let's talk about Sony and the PlayStation 4, as we did get numbers on the PlayStation 4. See, Nintendo and Sony, they do give numbers pretty much for their consoles that they've sold, software that they've sold. They put in nice little charts for us and everything. Whereas, of course, Microsoft, it's a little harder. It's like pulling teeth to get anything from them. They give us engagement numbers and stuff, but it doesn't tell us much. So at least with these two, we get something. Microsoft just kind of hides it because they're kind of far behind the PlayStation. We'll see, maybe next generation when they maybe they get ahead or something. They're like, oh yeah, we're selling this many now. We'll see. I'll be curious if that flips around. Anyway, the PlayStation 4. They reported that they have sold now, or at least shipped. Whenever you say shipped, that means the company like Sony or Nintendo have received the money, but they could also be sitting on store shelves in stores. Anyway, they have now shipped 82.2 million units. That is up 3.2 million from the last time we heard about this stuff 3 months ago when it was 79 million sold. So yes, in that span of 3 months in this quarter, they sold 3.2 million PlayStation 4s. That is technically, if you go to the quarter last year, the previous year, that's technically a 100,000 unit decline, but usually when you start getting towards what I expect to be kind of the end of the PlayStation 4's life cycle, I think we have like another maybe 2.5 years out of it before we start at least getting the next system on the market. That's usually what happens, obviously. It's almost like a bell curve. It kind of goes up and then it peaks, then it starts to kind of, go down and tail off. But at this point, they have now raised their expectations to the end of March of next year to 96 million units. That means they're going to get there, and they're going to be eyeing up 100 million units in what would be, I guess, their third console to reach that amount. And that's impressive. We'll see. I think they'll get there, though, because I think the PS4, even when it gets to 100 million, will still have at least a year and a half on the market. This could be a 120 million unit system when it's all said and done, and that would be insane. They also give us a bunch of charts showing that their revenue has significantly increased year on year to 472.1 billion yen, which is all due to growing PlayStation 4 software sales through the network, as you would expect. Operating income, as you can see, has also increased massively to 83.5 billion yen. Again, that's due to the effect of higher sales. And yes, surprise, PlayStation's doing well. This is obviously Sony's generation. Microsoft had no chance out of the gate. They have to restart next generation, which is why I feel like Microsoft wants to start the next generation first. Honestly, if I'm Sony, I'm making this kind of money, I'm still selling over 3 million units in a quarter. I'm just hanging out, I'm just kind of riding along here with my systems that keep selling and the money that keeps pouring in. Of course, they're in these what's been named as obviously the harvest years, where you have a number of systems out on the market, as we see over 80 million units. Even if not all of them have sold through to consumers, we can assume that there's at least 80 million units out there in consumers' households, whether you've bought two or one broke or whatnot. But we can look at that and say, all right, so when a game comes out, I'm going to collect quite a few royalty fees because we're going to sell X amount of games. They're going to sell the most Call of Duties, they're going to sell the most Red Dead Redemptions, and all this stuff just because they have such a stranglehold on the marketplace. So yes, Sony is comfortable. I feel like it's Microsoft who's like, let's get that next generation going, guys, because they're not really in what you would call a harvest year, because they just, from what we can tell, it would be amazing if they were at 40 million units sold. It's more than likely somewhere around 38 or 39 million. Oh, and I know I've seen a lot of people asking, how does the Switch and the PlayStation 4 compare in their first almost year and a half year and 3 or 4 months? Go Nintendo actually did the math, put out a tweet saying, here's yet another look at how well the Switch is doing. After approximately 16 months, PlayStation 4 had sold 20.2 million units worldwide. As for the Switch, the system has sold 19.67 million units in approximately 15 months. The PS4 did this with 2 holiday seasons, while the Switch has gone through 1. So yes, the Switch is doing well, the PlayStation 4 doing well, the home console market is doing well, which is great because there were a lot of analysts before this generation started that said, home consoles, they're on the decline, they're on the way out. Cell phones, that's where it's at. I don't know. It looks like it's rolling along pretty well. And if anything here, the Nintendo Switch has proven you don't need to launch in a holiday period. You can launch in March, and I think the PS5 could do this as well, or even the next Xbox, because we're to the point where we're trained, okay, I want that, I'm gonna go buy it. Now, I wouldn't launch in January, obviously, because there are people probably still paying off a lot of credit cards from Christmas, but I do think the next generation could start in March for the PlayStation 5 and the next Xbox, and they would still sell out. They would still sell 1 million units or whatever in the first week or whatnot, and it would be business as usual. So I don't think they need to sell it starting in a holiday period, but it does show how good the Switch has been, obviously, if it's only used one holiday and is keeping pace with the PS4. It's this next year, this next fiscal year, it's really going to paint the picture as to if the Switch will keep it up or if it'll trail off, decline. We'll see. Then in our last bit of news, let's talk about a hire that Google has now made that seems to continue kind of pointing to them interested in the console market. And it's very interesting to see this because we keep hearing about whatever it's, the Yeti is what they're calling it, or it's codenamed Yeti, a cloud box, possibly a home console. Kind of sounds a lot like what Microsoft was talking about, that rumor that we've heard about Xbox Scarlet or Project Scarlet Cloud. And now it looks like Google has made a hire here that's kind of interesting. They've actually hired Richard Marks, who was a former senior research engineer who helped create Sony's PlayStation VR virtual reality headset and its PlayStation Move control. Now, this was reported by GamesBeat over with VentureBeat. And what's interesting about this is it could absolutely be a hire for their Daydream or their own VR technology and stuff that they've been working on. But I kind of see this as them looking at that gamer market that they have, because they've been hiring other people that have worked with PlayStation and stuff, and it seems like they're kind of building up a team internally, possibly to work on maybe a VR headset that can work with a game console. I don't know. It's very interesting to see Google making these hires because all the rumors are pointing to them entering the console market in some way. Google would be interesting to see jump in. A lot of people weren't sure Microsoft could jump in, and they did. So we'll see. But these hirings definitely raising some eyebrows with some people when it comes to this. And guys, we're going to leave Newswave today. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you hit the like button. Really helps out. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about all the stuff we talked about today, whether it is the financials for Sony with the amount of systems they've sold. How many do you think they'll have when it's all said and done? 100, 110, 120, 30 maybe? Let me know, guys, down below. What about the Switch and the PS4 pretty much keeping pace in their first 15 to 16 months? Do you think the Switch will keep it up, or do you think it'll have some struggles in there? Let me know about that down below as well. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time.